Number 1.
A 6-year-old went out to play in the snow and vanished. Nearly 4 decades later, what happened to him is still a mystery. Callie Hollan had an unexpected day off from kindergarten on February 12, 1982. Knott's County, Kentucky had been hit with a heavy snowstorm, and school had been cancelled as a result. After he ate breakfast, he begged his mother, Judy Moore, to be allowed to go out and play in the snow. Judy initially told him no. Callie had asthma, and she didn't think it was a good idea for him to go out in such cold weather. Eventually she gave in to his pleas, though, and helped him put on snow boots and his heavy winter coat. After cautioning him not to leave the yard, she sent him outside at 11 a.m. Judy had been a very young mother. She dropped out of school when she was just 14 years old and married Bobby Hollan. By 1974, the couple had 2 children, Robert and Margaret. A third child had been born premature and only survived a few weeks. Neither Bobby nor Judy had a job. Judy said she had epilepsy that prevented her from working. The state of Kentucky removed Robert and Margaret from the home, ruling that Judy wasn't taking adequate care of them. Her parents stepped in and took custody of both children, but it wasn't long before Judy got pregnant again. Callie was born in November 1975. The state of Kentucky doesn't appear to have raised any questions about Judy's ability to parent him, and she retained custody of Callie. She and Bobby soon divorced, and she told people that Callie was all she had. Judy and Callie moved in with her boyfriend in Pine Tree Hollow in 1981. It was an extremely rural area, with gravel roads and just a few houses scattered around the hollow. Due to its remoteness, Judy felt it was quite safe to allow 6-year-old Callie to play outside unsupervised. She checked on him through the window a few times that afternoon, and he seemed to be having fun entertaining himself in the snow. Judy went to a neighbor's home at 4 p.m. to use their phone. She and her boyfriend didn't have a phone of their own, and she needed to talk to her sister. Callie was still playing outside at the time. After chatting with her sister, she returned home. Callie was no longer in the yard, but she assumed he went to visit a friend down the street. The 2 boys would often watch television together. Callie loved the Dukes of Hazzard, so Judy figured Callie would return home once the show was over. Judy made dinner around 6 p.m. and went outside to see if she could find Callie, but he still hadn't returned. She decided to eat without him. After she finished her meal, she walked to the home of Callie's friend and asked if Callie was there. She was surprised to learn that Callie hadn't been there at all that day. Judy claimed that once she learned Callie was missing, she went to the home of her boyfriend's grandparents, so she could use their phone to call police. For some reason, she said they refused to allow her to use the phone until midnight. It's unclear why she didn't attempt to go somewhere else to use a phone. By the time she called to report the child missing, he had been gone for at least 6 hours and possibly more. The Knott County Rescue Squad was dispatched immediately and began searching the area for the missing child. They initially assumed that he had simply wandered off and gotten lost and expected to find him quickly. At 1:51 a.m., the rescue squad called the Kentucky State Police and alerted them that the situation appeared to be more serious, as they had found no sign of Callie. The first state trooper arrived on the scene at 3 a.m. The earliest hours of the search were hampered by a lack of manpower on the overnight shift, as well as by the fact that it had started to snow again. By daylight, however, dozens of officials were involved in the search for Callie. Most assumed the boy was lost or injured. The area was so remote that abduction didn't seem likely. Their main concern was that Callie might have tumbled into one of the abandoned mine shafts that dotted the area. New snowfall had eradicated any footprints the boy might have left, so they used search dogs to try and pick up his scent. The dogs seemed unable to pick up a scent trail. Judy called her parents to tell them that Callie was missing. Their reaction was likely not what she expected. They seemed to think Judy had done something to her son. Judy's father lamented the fact that he and his wife only had custody of Margaret and Robert, saying that if they had custody of Kelly he wouldn't have disappeared. Initial reports indicated that a friend of Kelly's had seen him on the afternoon he disappeared. The boy stated that he and Kelly had walked to a small store located in the hollow around 4 p.m. Later reports omitted this supposed sighting. It's unclear if police were able to rule it out, or if the child reporting it had his days mixed up. No one else reported seeing Kelly at all that day. Judy believed that Kelly's father likely had something to do with the abduction, but police were able to verify that he had been nowhere near Pine Tree Hollow on the day he went missing. Judy's sister claimed that Judy had killed Kelly and asked her for help hiding his body, but Judy denied this and her sister later retracted her statement. The search for Kelly continued for more than 2 weeks. Police combed through Pine Tree Hollow looking for any evidence that might lead to the missing child, but found nothing. They drained wells and dragged creeks, searched through abandoned mines, dug up several different areas, and checked under homes and porches. One neighbor thought she recalled seeing a green car in the area on the day Kelly went missing, but without any other information police were unable to determine if this car had anything to do with the disappearance. Police looked into rumors that Judy was somehow responsible for whatever happened to Kelly, but were unable to find any evidence to substantiate these claims. Several of the detectives believed Judy was involved, but also noted that several of the people living in the area had criminal records, and none could be ruled out. A grand jury investigation took place, but no one was ever indicted in the case. The investigation soon went cold. Sporadic searches for Kelly continued to take place over the years. In 2008, detectives received a tip that Kelly had been killed and buried under the concrete porch of his former home. Investigators dug around the entire foundation of the porch but found nothing. The case remains open, and detectives continue to follow up on new leads as they learn of them. They do not believe Kelly was abducted. They believe he was likely murdered on the same day he was reported missing, and are hoping to one day get the information they need to close the case. Kelly Hollan was 6 years old when he went missing in 1982. He has brown hair and blue eyes. At the time of his disappearance, he was 4 feet tall and weighed 60 pounds. He was born with a cleft palate and has a scar on the left side of face between his upper lip and his nose, and he had a noticeable speech impediment. He was last seen wearing a blue winter coat with a hood and snow boots. If you have any information on Kelly, please contact the Kentucky State Police at 600-6435-6069.
Number 2.
Mary Trlica was last seen with Lisa Renee Wilson and Julie Ann Mosley on December 23, 1974 in Fort Worth, Texas. They were spending the day Christmas shopping at the Seminary South Shopping Center. Lisa was a friend of Julie's family and Julie has never met Rachel prior to the trip. Julie lived across the street from Lisa's grandmother at the time of her disappearance, which was where Lisa was spending the late morning hours of December 23. Lisa originally asked Julie's older brother, Terry, who she was dating at the time, to accompany her and Mary to the mall, but he couldn't go. The girls let Julie tag along after she got permission from her mother to do so. The trio left just before noon and arrived at the Army-Navy store to get Christmas presents from the layaway. They then went to the Seminary South Shopping Center. They parked the Trlica family's Oldsmobile on the upper parking level near the Sears department store. When the girls were reported missing, witnesses came forth to authorities and stated they had seen the 3 girls in the mall during the day. Authorities believe that the girls returned to the car at some point during afternoon, but anything that they may have occurred afterwards remains a mystery. Authorities initially believed that Mary, Lisa, and Julie had run away, but the families of the girls believed that something else transpired that day. The theory that they left was seemingly corroborated by a letter that Rachel allegedly mailed to the Trlica residence the day after they went missing. The letter was addressed to Thomas, Mary's husband at the time, and the name in the corner was signed Rachel. The letter stated that the three were in Houston, Texas, and would return approximately within a week. The letter also apparently gave directions to where the car was located, at the shopping area. Authorities are unsure of who wrote the letter, and handwriting analysis results ended inconclusively. Authorities believe that the girls may have been abducted. Many witnesses gave reports that they saw the girls, or at least one of them, being forced into vehicle. One sighting said a truck, while the other said a van. Another witness gave a claim in 2001, where he stated he saw the three girls in a pickup truck with a young man who was a security guard at the shopping center at approximately 11:30 p.m. The girls were apparently relaxed and seemed to be in the vehicle willingly. The security guard was located and identified by police, but he maintained that he did not have the girls in his truck that night. This tip was actually sent to police within a few days of their disappearances, but authorities failed to investigate the tip until 2001. Mary's brother, Rusty, believes that the girls were abducted, and that Lisa and Julie were killed. He, as well as private investigator, Dan James, believe that Mary is alive, and that unknown individuals are keeping her from visiting the Fort Worth area. Several credible witnesses reportedly saw Mary in the Fort Worth area in the decades after her supposed abduction. James began to offer a $25,000 reward for information that would lead to an arrest in the disappearances in December of 1999. Rusty and James both maintained a website known as missingtrio.com to help raise awareness and display information on the case. The three girls remain missing, and their disappearances remains unsolved. Authorities believe that the girls left the mall with someone they trusted and knew, and were murdered afterwards. If you have any information concerning this case, please contact Fort Worth Police Department 817-877-8345.
Number 3.
A 35-year-old question remains unanswered. Where is Jeremy Grice? The question has echoed around Aiken County after Jeremy, a 4-year-old, was reported missing on November 22, 1985. This May would have been his 39th birthday. This investigation has, and continues to have, an impact on the Aiken County community, to where people who were in Aiken County the day that Jeremy went missing can tell you what they were doing at the time of his disappearance, said Captain Eric Abdullah with the Aiken County Sheriff's Office. Cold winds and heavy rain beat down that morning as panic struck in a small quiet neighborhood when Jeremy was reported missing. He lived in a trailer with his mother and stepfather, Donna, and Nikki Arrington, along with his 7-month-old sister in the Russell Hills development located between Bath and Beach Island, just off Pine Log Road. Jeremy's mother came home at approximately 1 a.m. after working a late shift at her job, according to previous articles in the Aiken Standard. Her husband had tucked Jeremy into bed the night before. She went to sleep, but woke up around 7 a.m. to make coffee for her husband as he got ready for work. On her way back to bed, she stopped by Jeremy's room to check on him as he slept. Past articles state that she didn't actually see Jeremy, but saw the covers on his bed, rumpled in a heap. Jeremy had a habit of burrowing under the covers when he slept, so she thought nothing of it. She was later awakened at 10 a.m. by the cries of Jeremy's 7-month-old sister. After tending to her daughter, Donna realized Jeremy was not in the home. She began to frantically search in and around the trailer, but there was no sign of Jeremy. She called the Aiken County Sheriff's Office, and deputies arrived on scene within the hour. Sheriff Carol G. Heath called in all off-duty personnel to respond to the scene for a thorough search of the area. However, there was still no sign of Jeremy. A next-door neighbor, possibly the last person to see Jeremy, said she saw the 4-year-old outside of his family's trailer playing with his dog by the mailbox at approximately 8:45 a.m., according to previous reports. Jeremy's mother told police that it was odd that Jeremy would have been outside because of the severe inclement weather, an incident report by the sheriff's office states. She pointed out to officers Jeremy left his favorite jacket and shoes in his room. Also, the dog he was reportedly seen playing with was known to always stay by his side. The dog was still home, but Jeremy was not. The severity of the situation began to grow. The sheriff's office responded by organizing a large search throughout an approximately 3-mile radius around Jeremy's home. Men and women from the SC Law Enforcement Division, the SC Wildlife and Marine Resources Department, and the Aiken County Sheriff's Office combed through the woods and fields surrounding the Russell Hills area in hopes of finding Jeremy. Volunteer firefighters and Aiken County community members joined in making the searches. Participants number over 100 people, according to past reports. Officers canvassed the neighborhood and followed up on any possible leads. Family members were questioned several times, and many were polygraphed with negative results, an incident report by the sheriff's office states. 2 ponds less than half a mile from Jeremy's home were drained as fears arose that the boy may have accidentally drowned. Among the group of searchers was former Aiken Standard reporter Fran Chapman Smith, who said she responded to the area when the newsroom heard about the search over the police scanner. From that day on, she would continue to follow Jeremy's case throughout her reporting career. There were a lot of cases over the years, but this one captured everyone's attention and everyone's hearts, Smith recalled. As a mother now, I can't even fathom waking up and your 4-year-old child not being there. Smith said searchers held out hope for days, trekking through muddy, drain ponds and checking every area in the surrounding woods in hopes of finding any trace of Jeremy. A helicopter flew overhead searching for Jeremy from above. Among those searching on the ground was Jeremy's biological father, Ray Grice, who reportedly would spend all hours of the night calling out for Jeremy. I walked most of these woods hollering for him, myself, Ray Grice said in a November 27, 1985 Aiken Standard article. Just anybody who hollered for him and he didn't know them, he wouldn't answer. He was shy. After nearly 3 days of fruitless searching, the sheriff's office announced they believe Jeremy was kidnapped. A fear swept over the Russell Hills neighborhood and the Aiken County area. It's a fear that neighbors Tony and Lynn Prosser said they still haven't forgotten. The two have lived in the Russell Hills neighborhood since 1980. They were next-door neighbors of Jeremy's family and would often see him playing in his front yard. He was just about the same age as their own son. I was so messed up because my kid played in the front yard, too, at the time, Tony Prosser said. From that day forward until mine got older, he played in the back. The Prossers still live in the same home and say most of the people who lived in the area have either moved or passed away. Jeremy's trailer is no longer in the neighborhood. They haven't heard from the Arringtons in years, but they say Jeremy's case still comes to mind often. Many times we would be sitting down to eat and, while we would say the blessing, my boy would say, I hope whoever has Jeremy is being good to him, Mama Lynn Prosser said. It was just a sad and scary time. It made you pick up your own and hold them closer. Throughout the years, the Aiken County Sheriff's Office has received tips and possible sightings of Jeremy. However, each one has turned out to be a dead end. Flyers were printed and passed around. Reward money was offered for any information leading to Jeremy being found. As of November 18, 2020, the Sheriff's Office reports that Jeremy's case is still an ongoing investigation, but there have not been any significant leads in recent years. The Sheriff's Office's hope that Jeremy will be found alive continues to dwindle. The challenge to this case is that this case has been under investigation since the 1980s, Abdullah said. The assigned investigators were not employed with this agency when this case was initiated, and are having to work off of case notes from the original investigation and pick up where the investigator left off. The sheriff's office confirmed that until Jeremy's case is solved, it will continue to be an ongoing investigation. The department still keeps a DNA file on Jeremy's case to assist in the investigation, and his case is still listed on the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's website. Abdullah encourages anyone with any information that could assist in Jeremy's case to contact the sheriff's office at 803-648-6811. Anytime a child goes missing, it has a great and lasting impact on a community, but as long as someone cares, there is always hope, Abdullah said. We hope that someday, the final answers will come not for us, but for Jeremy and his family.
Number 4.
On Friday, April 3, 1987, Sarah Boyd, 32, and Linda McCord, 33, left their homes in Harleyville, Dorchester County, South Carolina, to attend a gospel concert. They drove in a blue Lincoln to Walterboro, Colton County, South Carolina, with Sarah's daughter Kimberly in tow. It's been difficult to uncover much background about the missing trio, given the rather limited media attention this case received. I found a letter to the editor of the Orangeburg newspaper, The Times and Democrat, on April 10, 1988 written, in fact, to lament the newspaper's lack of coverage of the anniversary of the disappearance that stated that Sarah Boyd was employed at Norman C. Toole Middle School, although it did not specify her role. I could not find any other details about the women, except that they were both married. It is difficult to construct a timeline for this case because information is unclear or conflicting. For example, one article said the trio were seen in Walterboro between 10:30 and 11 p.m. that evening, and around 11:30 p.m. they were seen in Dorchester County. Yet the same article claims the car was seen abandoned by the side of the road at 10 p.m. that evening. Another description from the Charlie Project. A witness saw their blue Lincoln driving between 30 and 45 miles per hour around Route 15. Another car was behind it, but the witness was unable to describe the second vehicle or its occupants. A second vehicle has not been mentioned in any of the news reports I've uncovered. It's also unclear exactly when the women were reported missing. According to the Charlie Project, Philip Boyd, Sarah's husband, had to work that night. When he returned to an empty house at midnight, he wasn't worried. He figured his wife and daughter had stayed at McCord's or with other family. When he awoke at 6 a.m. and they had not returned, he contacted police. A news article reported that Mrs. McCord's husband reported them missing when they did not return home, although it did not specify what time the report was made. On Sunday, April 5, the blue Lincoln the women were driving was found in Orangeburg County at Wells Crossroad, the intersection of State Highways 15 and 176. The car was found by one of the women's husbands. The article does not specify which one, who was accompanied by Captain William Martin of the Orangeburg County Sheriff's Office. According to Orangeburg County Sheriff C.R. Smith Jr., a freeze plug had blown out on the car, and it had to have been running hot. Apparently, this was as far as it would go. On April 27, another search was conducted in a half-mile radius of where the car was recovered. Dorchester County Sheriff Carl Knight stated, "We called for the search to satisfy the families. We checked the area and didn't find one thing." He also stated, "To put it plainly, we are pulling at straws right now." In fact, they did find something. Marijuana. One article reported it was 3 fields with 65 to 70 marijuana plants, another said it was 4 fields over 3 acres, with plants as tall as 15 feet, and a street value of over $20 million. One might wonder how the initial search, if it was sufficiently thorough, failed to uncover a giant weed farm. Regardless, according to an article, the find led to an immediate shift in priorities. The search for the trio was called off after the marijuana fields were found. SLED agents and Dorchester County Sheriff's deputies who were conducting the search instead began the long job of chopping down the marijuana and hauling it away. After that, the case disappeared from the local newspapers. Given the rarity of missing groups of people as well as an endangered child, not to mention the fact that this was in an age when newspapers existed in small towns and were very locally focused, the absence may seem surprising until you consider the fact that they were black and living in rural South Carolina. In August 1987, an advertisement appeared in the Orangeburg paper offering a $6,000 reward for information about the missing trio. It is unclear if this was successful in turning up tips. In the aftermath of the Weed Farm discovery, Herman Marchant, 47, and his twin brothers, John W. Blackie and Jim M. Whitey Marchant, both 63, were arrested on drug manufacturing and trafficking charges. The last trace of the trio appeared in 1990. According to the Charlie Project, Sarah's credit card was used in a local mall in 1990, 3 years after her disappearance. Police stated the signature was barely legible and didn't match Sarah's writing. Anyone with information can contact the Dorchester County Sheriff's Office at 1-843-873-5111.
Number 5.
Richard Uden was last seen in Lander, Wyoming on September 12, 1980 with his brother, Reagan Uden, and his mother, Virginia Uden. They were last seen as they left Virginia's mother's home in Riverton, Wyoming at approximately 1:30 p.m. They were driving the family's station wagon to go meet her ex-husband, Gerald Uden. Gerald was to take the boys bird hunting, and the boys had a rifle in the car with them. The trio never arrived to the destination, and have never been seen or heard from since. The car they were traveling in, a 1973 Ford station wagon, was found abandoned and vandalized on October 4, 1980. Virginia had borrowed it from her mother. The car was apparently found 75 feet below the top of the Trout Creek Canyon in the Wine River Canyon region of Fremont Canyon. It appeared as though someone had tried to push the car into the canyon, but it got snagged on the rocks. The person then tried to conceal the car with pine branches. Authorities also found large amounts of Virginia's blood on the car's interior. Some agencies say that the blood was that of the Uden brothers, but it was Virginia's. In 2013, Gerald was charged with killing his ex-wife and 2 sons. He and Virginia has been separated for some time prior to their disappearances. Gerald was not Richard and Reagan's biological father, but he did legally adopt them prior to their disappearances. He pleaded guilty to the charges in October of 2013. Gerald confessed that he shot Virginia and the boys with a .22 caliber rifle they were going to use for hunting. He apparently shot them while they got out of the car at a canal near Pavilion in Fremont County, Wyoming. He also confessed that he had planned the murders. Gerald said that he out the bodies in large drums barrels and initially hid them in a mine, but then dumped them in Fremont Lake, which is approximately 450 to 600 feet deep. Authorities searched the lake to attempt to find their remains but couldn't. They continue to search in goods that they'll find them. Since Gerald took a plea for guilt, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for the killings. He apparently had no remorse for what he had done to them. In addition to Gerald's arrest, authorities also arrested his current wife, Alice Louise Uden, and charged her with the murder of her husband, Ronald Lee Holtz, who vanished at some point between 1974 and 1976. Holtz's remains were located in an abandoned gold mine in August of 2013. He was killed by a gunshot to the head. Alice had been a suspect in his disappearance for a long time. She stated that she killed Holtz to protect her 2-year-old daughter, but investigators believe she planned his murder and simply shot him as he slept. She pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to life imprisonment. She died on June 12, 2019, while she served her sentence. Reagan, Richard, and Virginia remains missing and foul play is suspected in the cases. Reagan and Richard continue to be listed as abductions. If you have any information concerning this case, please contact Fremont County Sheriff's Office 307-332-5611.
Number 6.
Jennifer Lee Martin was 11 years old when she went missing on June 28, 1987. She went missing from Reno, Nevada, and her case is classified as a non-family abduction. She was 4'6" and around 49 pounds when she went missing. She has brown hair, blue eyes, a star-shaped scar on the inside of her upper right arm, white bumps on her back, a coffee stain-type birthmark on her right hip and 2 small scars under her chin. She also has facial freckles and pierced ears. Jennifer was last seen wearing a gray-purple sweatshirt dress, and she was barefoot. Jennifer Lee Martin was born on January 14, 1976. Her family lived in Clearwater, Florida, before moving to Reno, Nevada. Her older brother had just had a baby, and Jennifer was excited to be an aunt, and doted on her little niece. Jennifer was a homebody, and loved her family. She even heard her sister-in-law was going to have another baby. On June 28, 1987, Jennifer Martin walked to the 7-Eleven store on Lemon Valley Drive, just about 5 minutes from her home. She had walked down to this 7-Eleven store many times before, sometimes up to 3 times a day. This time, she bought some candy and soda, and headed back to her home on Surge Street but never arrived. She had made this trip so often before without incident, so what was different this time? She was known to be a very independent child who was able to assert herself around adults. She never would have gone willingly with a stranger, and had no history of running away. She was fearful of strangers, but wasn't shy about confronting adults. She was a smart child who was always aware of her surroundings, and took her safety very seriously. After about 20 minutes had gone by and Jennifer hadn't arrived home, her older brother Charles got worried, and went looking for her. He went to the 7-Elevens to look around, but found nothing, and had to head back home. The clerk at the 7-Eleven saw Jennifer leave the store, and take a left heading back down the street to her home. Nobody saw her again after that. Neighbors and local law enforcement conducted a search for Jennifer that evening but found nothing. They canvassed the local Lemon Valley neighborhoods, even clogging traffic from the amount of people in the search effort, but they still came up empty. On the following Monday, police searched a wider area of Lemon Valley, and had air searches as well as ground searches. They questioned the 7-Eleven's clerk, and the one other customer who was in the store, a male asking for directions. They also came up empty. With no evidence, and no crime scene, they had to classify her as a missing person instead of an abduction. There was a girl in an Arizona shelter for runaways who reported another girl resembling Jennifer in the building. The Martins arrived, but found it wasn't their daughter. With their hopes ripped away, they knew Jennifer was still missing. It has been more than 30 years since Jennifer's disappearance, but her sister Colleen keeps hoping to see her sister again. Colleen has kept the same family phone number in case Jennifer calls one day. She says she thinks about her sister every day, and hopes she'll get to see her again, or at least get some closure as to what happened to her. Authorities still have not found any suspects. As of 2015, they are still investigating leads and hoping they will someday be able to find out what happened all those years ago. No official theories have been made, but I found one on Web Sleuths that caught my attention. Please note that this is just a theory. A defrock priest, Stephen Kiesel, was a suspect in Jennifer's case back in mid-2002. He had been arrested and charged in 1978 with the molestation of 3 young girls at the Santa Paula Catholic Church in Fremont. He had worked there from 1968 through 1971. Authorities searched his yard extensively in June 2002 with cadaver dogs, radar, and a backhoe. They were looking for any evidence in several missing persons cases involving young children, including Jennifer Martin, J.C. Dugard, Amber Swartz Garcia, and Anthony Franco. Kiesel's vacation home was in Truckee, Nevada, and it was excavated on June 5. Cadaver dogs had shown something might be buried at the home. The dogs picked up scents of either human or animal remains on the property. Kiesel was found to be living just 1.5 blocks from another young girl that went missing in 1988, Amber Swartz, who was only 7 years old. Authorities claim they didn't find any evidence on the vacation property or Kiesel's home in Pinot Lake, California. This is the only theory I could find, but it has no official or solid police evidence linking it to Jennifer Martin's case. If you have any information on Jennifer Lee Martin, please call the Washoe County Sheriff's Office at 775-328-3001 or 775-328-3369.